Hey, what up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And today, we're going to go over whether or not the Cowboys can have success this year, despite what recent evidence would suggest. There was a really well done piece by my friend John Machota in The Athletic recently, which went over the optimism from Cowboys fans based on a survey that they did, and the reality of the success that a first-year head coach has had in the National Football League. What Machota found is that there's been 68 new coaches hired in the NFL in the last 10 years, and the average record of those teams in year one was 7-9. Now you might be saying, well, yeah, but bad teams hire new coaches, and that's why their records aren't going to be very good, which makes sense. He also found that 17 of those 68 teams made the playoffs, which means that there's been some semblance of success for some of those teams. 4 of them made the conference championship game, and 1 made the Super Bowl. That was Gary Kubiak of the Denver Broncos. So 4 out of 68 coaches hired in the last 10 years have made the conference championship game in year one. There is a lot of optimism for the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy in year one, as BetOnline.ag has Mike McCarthy with the 3rd highest odds to win Coach of the Year. Behind Bruce Arians and Bill Belichick at 12-1, McCarthy is at 14-1. So if you're watching this and you're optimistic, like say Cowboys can win 10 games or 11 games or 12 games or 13 games or 14 games, and by the way, I predicted the Cowboys would go 12-4 in an earlier video I did, so I'm also optimistic. Here's my question to you. Does knowing these numbers make you less optimistic? Because that's what it comes down to. Are you less optimistic knowing that first-year head coaches in the last 10 years haven't had much success? It's interesting information, but knowing this doesn't change the way that I feel about the 2020 Cowboys. And this is what it comes down to. Can the Cowboys' strengths outweigh their weaknesses? Because where we sit today in the offseason, 32 fan bases, maybe not 32, but 27 fan bases are pretty optimistic about their football team going into the season. That's kind of the nature of the beast of the NFL. The offseason is built to build optimism within fan bases. So everybody's going to look at their teams at this point of the season and not find the flaws, but every team has flaws. Even the Kansas City Chiefs had flaws last year. Teams that win Super Bowls have flaws. It's just whether or not your strengths can outweigh your weaknesses. So let's think about this as it pertains to the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys' strength is the offense, and the Cowboys' weakness is their defense. I know there have been a lot of people in my Twitter mentions at RE Sports. There have been a ton of people that I found on the Cowboys subreddit, shout out Cowboys subreddit, that are pretty optimistic about this defense. And I don't know how, quite frankly. Now, granted, up front, they're pretty good. They've improved with the additions of Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe. They did lose, obviously, Robert Quinn, who had a fantastic year, but with Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory, and that's a lot of hoping and praying, right? Because where we are in the offseason right now, all we can go on is what we know based on past, not hoping and praying that everything works out for Aldon Smith, and I'm just going to have blind faith in the fact that he's going to have a good year. But even with the questions that the Cowboys have at right defensive end, I still think that this is an improved defensive line. But as you move back into the second level and linebacking core of this defense and then into the secondary, this is where I'm less and less optimistic. Now, I know a lot of Cowboys fans have been saying, oh, Cheeto, he's going to improve with new defensive philosophies. Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown and all of these corners that have struggled at times for the Cowboys, they're going to improve with a new philosophy. And if you're somebody that was saying the philosophy that Chris Richard was preaching to these defensive players in the secondary just didn't work, well, then how did it work for Byron Jones, who was a Pro Bowler last year and an All-Pro the year before? How can it work for Byron Jones, who went from safety to corner and turned into an All-Pro, but not work for the other guys? The Cowboys secondary struggled last year, and they lost their best player in Byron Jones. So now suddenly Al Harris and Mike Nolan and everything's going to be great, their secondary? I mean, I'm excited about the potential of Reggie Robinson and Trayvon Diggs and what they have with some of their younger players, but I am not optimistic about their defense. But this is the most important question here. Can their offense, the strength, outweigh the weakness of the defense? Because, again, I picked them to go 12-4 knowing that I wasn't very confident in their defense, because this is an offensive league. And even though the Chiefs' defense did improve last year, they won a Super Bowl because of their offense. Go back and look at the last 10 Super Bowl champions. 9 of them won because they had a top 5 offense. I say this all the time. In the NFL, you have to have a top 5 offense or a top 5 defense. You don't have to have both. You're not going to have both. You just have to have one. And if you have one, you better be top 5 on offense, because 9 of the last 10 Super Bowl champs were top 5 offenses. And the Cowboys this year, with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, with bringing back Amari Cooper, with a smarter offensive coach who should do a better job in leveraging some of the modern techniques for this Cowboys team, that's what has me optimistic. This was a top 10 offense last year, and in some cases it was a top 5 offense last year. And they did this with a head coach who wasn't using modern analytics and modern trends to help guide play calling. Plus, they added, in my opinion, the best college football wide receiver available in a wide receiver class that was loaded. This offense is going to be multiple. They're going to be using and utilizing modern analytics and trends to help guide play calling and decision making. And they're going to be one of the best offenses in football. And that's why I remain very optimistic about this Dallas Cowboys season in 2020, despite the lack of success that we've seen in recent history from first-year head coaches. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and consider hitting the subscribe button. There's no shortage of action going on at my partner, BetOnline.ag. Sports are slowly making their way back, with UFC, NASCAR, and soccer leading the way. BetOnline has all the best odds and lines for the upcoming matches this weekend. Need more? BetOnline has simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC happening every day, live for you to check out. Looking for something else other than sports? BetOnline has hundreds of casino games, poker tournaments, and all the best props in the business. Visit betonline.ag or use your mobile device and join now to receive your new welcome bonus and start playing today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.